started getting into trading because it's obviously something that you can do by yourself and at a computer.
Was it easy for you right at the get-go? Was it just like sunshine and roses?
You know, to be honest, it actually.
Welcome back, everybody. Today is going to be a great day because I have a special guest for all of you. It's a trader who focuses primarily on swing trading, and he's been doing this for 6 years. His name, Jimmy. And Jimmy, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely, man. So, first off, I do know a little bit about your background because we did meet in Dallas, so I really appreciate you giving me some time to meet with you. But if you can get people started on what got you even into the world of trading.
So it basically came down to the fact that I have a disabled brother,
Yep.
and you know, there's very limited things that I could do to help my parents and be at the house all the time. So it's not like I could go and get a normal job. So it was either, you know, start an online business, which I did. I ran a couple record labels for a while. And then I started getting into trading because it's obviously something that you can do by yourself and at a computer. So that's basically how I got into it, yeah.
And first off, whenever you discovered it, what year was that?
It was 2017 is when I kind of started getting heavily into it. Of course, I was trading crypto like every other person probably around that time. But you know, as time went on, I started to kind of get more into equity. It's just a better world to be in.
Was it easy for you right at the get-go? Like when you discovered it and you started trading, was it just like sunshine and roses?
You know, to be honest, it actually was.
Oh, wow.
It was only after a couple years it started to become a little bit more tricky for me, actually. It was just a really good few years during that time. So, you know, later on, like closer to 2020, obviously, it got a little bit trickier for a while. And that's basically when I started to have to really go through the grind of trying to figure things out.
Really?
Yeah.
So the beginning, would you say, was that just pure luck, or did you have some type of did you have something you were doing, or is it kind of just like, what was your strategy? What were you doing at that time?
Well, I think the edge was just that it was so early because, like I mentioned, I was only trading crypto at that point, and you know, I don't think there was a lot of institutional demand at that point. So I felt like it was just a lot of regular people trading. So there wasn't a lot of like crazy moves that I wasn't expecting, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's basically how I got my trading account started. Yeah.
Wow. So you grow an account, and then, by the way, once you grow that account, did you like double the account? Did you grow it on? I'm just curious. Like, was it something that was under PDT and now it wasn't over PDT? Like, I'm just curious when you started trading equities.
So I started primarily trading equities in 2020.
Okay.
That was when I started doing it mostly. But yeah, up until that point, it was crypto only.
And on equities, at that point, you were already over PDT, correct?
Yes.
And that's when you started to hit the grind.
Yes.
Explain that.
Well, as you know, there's a lot of other factors that come into equities as earnings, which I never had to even worry about previously. Fundamentals, like basically everything in that world that was not in crypto. I mean, obviously there was things like on-chain and crypto that you had to worry about, and being able to read the movement of like coins throughout the like the blockchain, you know. But now this is a whole different world that I never experienced as far as being able to read what institutions were doing, what bigger traders were doing, what retail was doing, you know, like I never really experienced it in that regard.
So what happened right out the gate when you did start in 2020?
Massive drawdown. I immediately probably had a 30% account drawdown, and had to work my way out of it. I just didn't understand that I needed to be a little bit more careful with protecting my money because it was a little bit more Wild West before. So yeah, that's basically what it was.
How'd you turn that around though? And you said it was a quick 30% drawdown. Give me a perspective there.
As far as how I turned it around?
No, in terms of you said quick to the drawdown of 30%. Was that like a month, 6 months?
No, it was about a 6-month period of just slowly chopping myself out. The way that I basically turned it around was I started working with some good mentors. Brian Shannon being one of them. He's the one that I initially got started with, and then I did some time with Mark Minervini. You know, a lot of the things that everyone goes through. I'm sure you've heard this a million times from other people you've interviewed. But yeah, I basically just started trying to educate myself, and that's how I climbed out of the hole.
Wow, and how long did it take you, would you say, to climb out of that hole?
I'd say about another 6 months.
Yep.
Yeah. And then ever since that point, you know, I learned a lot of valuable lessons about how to protect my capital, you know, how to risk like the proper amount, position sizing. So that's basically how I clawed myself out of that hole.
You know what's crazy is that I'm curious on, did you develop, like what type of strategy did you develop to get out of that hole? Because like, you're trading crypto, it's a wild, wild west. And then you go to equities and you go into drawdown. So how do you, like, what strategy do you find to get out of that drawdown? I know you found mentors and you get different, but what tips did you learn? Did you kind of learn one strategy from one of them, or did you kind of like build something over time? Like, how did that work?
So the main way that I found my way out of this was by actually developing a relative strength situation. I made it with one of my friends. His name's Alex as well.
Yeah.
So basically what we were doing is we were looking at the relative strength between starting from the top indexes to then go into sectors and then industry groups. And then within the industry groups, then dialing down to like what are the best stocks within those particular industry groups. And basically only trading the best or the worst stuff. Like if we were trading short, for example,
Yeah.
Go long the strong stuff, go short the bad stuff. And that's really like what changed my trading completely.
Are you a trader who focuses like with any type of technicals? Like, do you use any type of, like, what do you use besides that?
Yeah, I'm mostly using volume profile. That's kind of my thing. I don't really use it like a lot of other people. I mostly draw fixed volume profiles on swings. Like you'll see a lot of people using it on the right side of charts, like just for like the whole year, like a volume profile. But I really like drawing it from swings because then it shows me as a swing trader like where all the volume's sitting within each oscillation. So that's where I take my entries or my my exits is based on volume profile.
What would you say is the biggest hurdle for you in equities?
Probably say since I hold a little bit longer, it would have to be trying to figure out whether or not I'm in a proper position to sit through earnings. Earnings is where I've had some trouble in the past because I'll be up like 7 or 8% on a position, and the next day I wake up and I'm down 20%.
Yep.
So that's been tough because you have to kind of judge whether or not you are at a position where you can sit through it or you need to exit ahead of time. I know a lot of people use options to try to hedge that a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't, but that's where I've had the most troubles.
Is it something that, have you found a solution for it yet for yourself, or do you just avoid it now? Like, how do you deal with
I have to just kind of judge based on where I'm at. Like if it's kind of like if I'm up 10% on the position, then I typically will stay in it. Doesn't always work, but it's kind of my number that I've come up with.
It kind of gives you a buffer. So
Yeah,
like if
yeah.
it drops massive, you might
So
lose.
I don't get killed on it, and I still do get killed from time to time, but yeah.
Is it worth, just curious, like, do you prefer to hold into earnings? Like, is that the goal? Like,
If I can, for sure,
okay.
because I don't want to get out of a good position. A lot of times the earnings is the catalyst. I prefer to be in before the earnings, of course. So I have to. Yeah, I mean, it's just the best way to really like make a solid, gain.
yeah,
Just
it's
hold it
very.
for earnings.
I definitely agree with that. Like, earnings can be a huge catalyst and helping a lot of momentum take place, and cause massive moves that usually last for sometimes months. It's pretty insane. However, I'm just curious on, is it worth the risk sometimes? Have you thought about the idea of it worth the risk of being in play into earnings versus not in the long run? Just curious. Just because
Yeah.
I personally can't hold. I can't because I just can't.
I mean, I
So I'm just curious, 'cause
totally get it.
maybe I
man.
could
Yeah.
if I can hear this.
Yeah, I've tried it both ways. I've tried, playing like Bible gap ups or something after earnings, and both work. I've had success doing both of them, but yeah, if I'm not up like I said, if I'm not up 10%, I'm just out. Like
Gotcha.
I don't want to.
You'll be out before earnings.
Yeah, I don't want to risk it. I'd rather just maybe buy it back the next day, after I see like what's actually happened.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is the biggest strength in your personal trading and what you do every day?
I mean, I would basically just say it's the ability to stay in the game. I've had a lot of drawdowns. I always come back, As far as like technical strength, I'd probably say the ability to kind of come up with my own systems that I don't really see very often.
Yeah.
That's something I kind of take pride in is I look what everyone else is doing. I try to do the opposite because it's just the way I've been able to find edge,
Yes.
If I see someone doing, like I mentioned, relative strength, if I see someone doing relative strength one way, I'm like, well, how can I do it differently to where it's like something differently than what everyone else is doing so that I could try to find at least a little bit of something, And I back test it and I do research on it and I really try to find out just the uniqueness, you know.
Yeah.
That's probably my strength. Weakness, you know, maybe it's holding my positions a little too long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone asked me, what's the most important thing you want in a broker? And I said, great customer service, fast execution, a large number of locates for hard to borrow stocks, low prices on locates, reasonable commission, and rebates on routing. And that's why I use Cobra Trading every single day. They excel at everything that's important to me. Sign up now by using the link below, and Cobra Trading will give you 1 free month of software and 33% off commission for life. So what are you waiting for? Work with the best just like I do and click the link below. It's interesting because I didn't ask for your weakness, but you brought it up. So it's interesting. It's like you immediately wanted to go and be like, well, here's my strength, but here's also something I can improve on.
Yeah.
And I think all of us traders always could be improving on something, right? Like I feel like we're always working.
It's just
to grow.
the reality of trading, you know. Like if people want to hear the real reality of trading, like there is weaknesses. Like not all of us make money all the time.
That's right.
It can be really hard. It can be very hard. It can be mentally taxing. Yeah.
So let's talk about that because I know, you take care of your brother.
Yeah.
And you take care of your mother, correct? And you are married or
Yes.
married, correct? And so how do you balance? Because that is what a lot of people who are thinking about getting into this, and they might be in a similar situation.
Yeah,
What
a lot of people
what
are.
advice would you tell them? Like if they're like saying, hey, I am taking care of my sister or my brother, and I'm about to take care of one of my parents. And I'm trying to figure this out, and I'm at the beginning of my learning stage. What advice would you tell them?
Well, I'd say like first off, you're in a position if you are like a caretaker or looking after someone, that it's actually one of the best ways that you can possibly become a trader because you're able to actually learn, especially if you're being paid for it. You know, you're actually able to learn how to trade while you're at a job.
Yep.
A lot of people have to go to a 9 to 5, and it's really hard to get the time in to learn how to trade under that environment. You know, it's all about balance. I probably should tell myself that more. But yeah, you just have to take it from like day to day and realize that you just need to give yourself some time to handle life as well, but also realize that you have a benefit in learning how to trade, you know.
And you said sometimes I can take that advice myself. So I'm gonna bring that up because I know for myself, sometimes I find myself getting lost and where I'm just sitting at my desk and where I did this to be able to have freedom, to be with my family. So do you have plans or do you do anything right now to help you with that?
Mostly golf, as you know.
Yeah.
That's been something that I kind of picked up. I mean, I've been playing for a long time, but it's something that kind of gets me out of the house, you know, because I have a tendency to sit in front of the computer way too much, and I think a lot of us do. And having having a hobby or an ability to get you out of there can be very, very healthy, you know, as a trader.
Absolutely, tons. And, I feel like when we sit there longer, this is my personal experience, but the longer I sit there, it's almost like the worse it gets. Instead of the opposite for me, like when I'm not attached to it, it's like I feel more free. Does that make sense?
And the better you do a lot of the time, especially if you're in swing trades, because some of the best like periods where I've had in trading have been where I've been detached. I've been traveling. I'm barely watching what I'm doing. I mean, of course, I know what my positions are doing, but I'm not sitting there all day long. You know, those have been seriously some of the best like weeks I've ever had. You know. So it's not all about sitting there all the time, and we all need to tell ourselves this all the time.
100%. And now I'm curious, if someone wanted to learn swing trading, right? Any books or any potential like either free services, YouTube, whatever it may be, anything that has helped you with swing trading in general that could be helpful for someone else?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a big fan of like Gil Morales.
Okay.
And Chris Katcher.
Okay.
All their books are really, really fantastic.
What's one of their books?
It's like how we made 18,000% in the stock market. It's called, like by the O'Neill disciples is what they call them. So it's one of them was like the VP for William O'Neill, and he did all the institutional side of things. So like he was basically like a contractor to all the institutions that were coming to William O'Neill for advice. But he kind of went off and took the whole CanSlim thing and did like another like version of it himself. That was a really good way to. Obviously, Brian Shannon was a very, very good mentor as well.
When you say mentor, what do you mean?
Like, I mean, I was just a part of his service. I wasn't like being directly
it's not
taught
like he
by
was
him.
over your shoulder.
No, but I really do consider these guys mentors, even though they're not like over my shoulder, because They are really engaged with their communities. They help a lot. They answer questions. A lot of people don't do that, So
Yes.
those are the two I would say if someone wanted to learn how to swing trade to start with,
I'm glad you were specific on the idea. Like, they don't have to be like physically your mentor. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I need you to do this, and here's do this. Let me review tomorrow. Let me review, because so many people out there feel like the only way they can actually have success is if someone is there with them all day and showing them every single thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I think in actuality, we need that space for ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm the kind of person that doesn't like that kind of learning environment. I don't
Yeah.
like a teacher trying to teach me something. I kind of like just getting the idea and trying it myself and failing and,
Yep.
and learning something from failing over and over and over. And both of those guys made it a reality that you're going to lose all the time. It's just part of the game. You'll learn as you lose. And I thought that was a really unique thing to learn because a lot of people will come into this thinking that they need to win all the time. Have a 90% win rate.
Yep. Oh my God. And you know why? Oh, dude, that hurts my ears because
Yeah.
that's like the most, I don't know why, but that's a new thing that's been circling around all over social media
Yep.
the past 3 years, I would say, or 2 years. That used to never be around. No one used to ever tout, I did have 90% win rate. It was always like, 60, 70, 50, more realistic, I guess you would say. And now it's like 90. And now people want to not ever lose.
Some of the best traders I know have a 30% win rate.
That's right. And
So-
almost all the traders I know, none of them have a 90% win rate.
No.
Like, I've never heard of that. And I'm like,
no, that's not reality.
It's insane. Now, sure, there could be some strategies out there, but in my opinion, if it's a high win rate, then that one trade can easily wipe out that win rate. And you can still make a lot of money that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you better be strict as hell on your
Yeah.
discipline.
And they're normally shorter term trades. The longer you
yes,
hold,
true.
the longer you hold it, the less win rate you probably are gonna have.
So what I'm curious about, man, is if you had to start over and you could actually go back though and give yourself some advice, what would you tell yourself?
Oh man, I'd probably say that I needed to focus more on, like I was mentioning, relative strength to you. That was something that I used to really struggle with. Is I would just look through thousands of charts looking at setups only. And there's so many setups every single day. I mean, you can get lost in every single setup. But what helped me and defined me as a trader was being able to pick just a small list of really, really good names or really garbage names if I was looking to short, and just focusing on those every week. Like, you don't have to always have hundreds of stocks on your watch list. Just make it really small and selective. That's the thing that really has transformed not only my trading but a lot of my friends as well. Is really taking down your basket of selections,
So do you mean and correct me if I'm wrong, do you mean like if someone's listening to this, they should just go find, 5 stocks that they like and then just watch those every day?
No, like just the way I do it personally is like I'll start with just the indexes.
Okay.
Like, for example, I'll look at like the S&P, Dow, Russell 2000, SPY, and I'll start to like what I did is I made a spreadsheet that basically will compare all of those, the way they move every single day. So then I color them so I could see like, okay, maybe the Russell 2000 is starting to show a little bit of strength. Okay, so I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to focus on is the Russell 2000. So then what I do is then I pop open and I do the same thing with the sector. So I look at all the sector ETFs and I start to see like, okay, behind the scenes, maybe basic materials are starting to show strength. So then and then I'll look at the factor analysis, which is the size of these stocks. So it'll say there's ETFs for small caps, large caps, large cap growth, small cap growth, mid caps, and then I start to see like how all these are moving against each other. So then I'll say like, okay, maybe mid caps are starting to work really well. So I know Russell 2000, mid caps. Here's the sector that's moving. So then maybe like technology or basic materials is the example you used. And then I drill down into basic materials and I look at the industry groups from within there. How are those moving against each other? And then I could start to see like, okay, this one's going from being poor to decent to very strong. So then I sort of say, okay, that's the industry group I'm focusing in. And then I drill down into that and I say, okay, what are the stocks inside of this? And then start to look at the relative strength of all those stocks within that group. So then it's a complete top-down approach, And that's how I find my names.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love that, man. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that because people are probably like,
Yeah.
because y'all need to
It's-
rewind that and listen to that because that was literally top down.
Yeah.
That was so top down. I mean,
And you can make your own calculations, Like if you're maybe a short-term trader, maybe like you take an average of the way that these things are moving over, a few days. And
Yep.
if you're a swing trader, maybe you do like a few weeks, or if you're a position trader, you do maybe like a few months, and you look at an average of how they're moving, and that's how you find these stocks.
How long does that take you? Do you do that every single day? Like, give us perspective there, because you explain that, and it sounds like when we're listening to it, right? It sounds
Yeah.
like, okay, so like,
So I do it every weekend. That's what
Okay.
I start doing. Is like every weekend I'll start to do like top-down analysis, and I'll build my list for the week, and that's what I'm trading for the week. Obviously sometimes like something might change towards the end of this week. Like this particular week, it's gone from large cap tech, and we saw small cap starting to make a move. So maybe when I do my analysis this weekend, I'll start to see maybe there's some rotation to small caps. And I'll build my list for next week based on that.
is there ever times you build your list and then the week happens and nothing happens?
Of course.
What do you do?
It's just a probability thing. It's just it's trying to increase my my probability on everything I do. So sometimes it just doesn't work. Maybe something changes. Maybe the Fed comes out and says they're going to hold rates longer or cut rates, and there's no way to predict that. But it's just about trying to be more right than not.
And you mentioned earlier, every one of your mentors in some way brings up that you will take losses.
All
And
the time.
how did you get comfortable with that?
By doing it over and over. I mean, there's no way that I can say it made me feel comfortable with losing all the time. To be honest,
Would you say you're completely immune?
No.
Okay. Okay.
It's a very emotional game. I'm a very emotional person for the most part, so I do feel losses.
So how do you deal with that? Because some people feel losses and it takes them overboard.
Yeah, it does, and they start to revenge trade or whatever.
Yeah.
I just have to remind myself that when I start to feel this way, to just take a step back. Maybe just stop trading for a few days, get my head right, and then come back with a fresh approach. Maybe even instead of being hard on yourself or feeling sad, just study. Take that time to like realize that you need to work on your game. And that's the way I've kind of got around it. Instead of feeling like sitting there sulking,
Yes.
I'll like pop open a book and really trying to learn something new. And that's the way that I've got around that.
You actually take breaks often for yourself?
Not as much as I should, but
Yeah.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you do take breaks.
Yeah.
Do you have rules around those breaks? Like, if I lose X, I got to take a break. If I do X, Y, Z, I got to take this long of a break or anything like that. Just curious.
It's mostly just a feeling. If I start to get in a feel if I start to get a feeling that like I'm not getting any traction and I'm starting to kind of
Get that little.
get a little, I feel a little bit ruffled.
right.
Like I'm not myself. I just know to step away now because I make really bad decisions when I'm feeling that way.
So before you didn't step away.
No, and that's why I had those significant drawdowns. So that was a
okay.
big part of it too that I forgot to mention was like I would just step away when I started to like feel that way.
So put us through that experience of the times you didn't step away. Take us through one of those days because there's new people who haven't traded yet and they're going to hit that.
Yeah.
And so maybe hopefully through your story they can understand like, oh, this reminds me of what happened.
Yeah.
Maybe I can do something else. So take us when you didn't have the rule of stepping away. What happened when you did that?
So it started getting to a point where I would get into drawdown, like heavy drawdown, and then
Yep.
I would start to panic, and then I would do something incrementally more stupid as time went on. I would start taking more size. I would start, getting into smaller names with low liquidity. I would start to take massive short positions in something that's run up and get squeezed even further. Just
It's
stuff
like
like
you're
that.
just trying to make it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make it back so that I could feel good again.
Yeah.
And it's just not it's not a good way to operate in this market. You'll get crushed.
What's the best way to come back? Like in terms of, you hit the drawdown. They took the break, right? Your advice. They come back. What's the best way to come back? And what kind of expectations do you have when you do come back? Do you think, I'm going to make this back in a week? Like, how do you think? Do you even think about that? Like, we're just curious.
So that's the hard part is because when you do come back, you are a little bit scared and you start to take maybe smaller positions. And my advice would be to just feel good about it. Just know that like it's not going to be like this forever. I would just hop back into it the way I was personally doing it before.
Same size and everything
when I
you
started to feel better,
Yeah.
like I want to make sure that I'm clear-headed, but I don't want to feel like I have to be scared because
Yes.
when I start to feel scared, then it almost is counterproductive because then I start taking less size when it is a good environment and I don't end up making the money back.
Yep.
So like I don't like hold myself back for very long if I
Yeah.
do.
is there, I know this is going to be very hard to answer, okay? I know it's going to be hard to answer, but I think it should be answered. And that is, how do you, like, is there something you ask yourself or something you do? Is there a feeling you look for to give you that, okay, it's time to go back? 'Cause I know you said you don't feel scared, but like, is there something you do to find that out, or like just curious?
I just know because I start having really good days, or I guess it wouldn't be really good because if I'm taking smaller size, it's not super good. But
Yeah.
I'm starting to see like a shift in tide. Like when
Oh,
you're
so you are still trading small at first?
I am starting.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
Not for long though. I don't want to
Okay.
like as
Your
soon
goal
as, as
isn't
soon as
to
I see that traction, it's gas pedal time again. But
Oh,
like
okay.
because when I'm having a bad period, it's down day, down day, down day, down
yes,
day,
we
down
know
day,
it.
and that's when I start to know like whoa, like something needs to change here.
Yep.
But then as soon as I start seeing like up day, up day, up day, it's starting to get kind of feel good again. Then it's time to hit the gas. I don't really do it any other way. It's just based on like how I'm feeling. Is there traction? Is there no traction? Like
So if you feel good,
mm-hmm.
it goes, is it safe to say whatever you size you started back at, you just go back to your old size?
Yeah.
Okay. So you feel good, next day back to old size.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how big that jump is from, getting your feet wet again, right?
Yeah.
And then from there, there's traders out there who are going to do this, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to jump right back to full size because they feel good,
Yeah.
right? And then they're going to take a full size loss on that next play. How do you deal with that? Do you immediately jump back down, or what do you do? Like, if you feel bad after that, do you immediately jump back?
If I take like a loss like that and then it starts to turn again on me,
Yeah.
then I go back down in size. That's the only way I can feel good with it. Is because I've
and
I've
it
had,
can't happen that
and
way.
it can happen, yeah.
And it does.
And it does happen, yeah.
And you're just like, thanks.
or you hop back in at the worst time. Like you're hopping back to full size as the market's about to turn, and then it's a
You don't know.
double whammy again.
Yep.
But it's just everyone's different.
Yep.
In the way that you deal with it and how you can process these hard emotions, and you just have to know how you feel and feel good about it. If you don't feel good about it, don't do it.
Just curious, would you say one is more important than the other when it comes to, because there's a huge thing on social media, and this is why I'm asking, that there's fights on it where people are like, oh, it's all strategy, oh, it's all mental, and some people are saying it's in between, but is there any opinion that you have in regards to those two opinions?
I don't really have much of an opinion on it because I know people that are just straight up fundamental traders, or guys like Larry Williams that are very seasonality based. There's and he says, oh, technicals don't really matter as much to me, and the guy's making 1,000% in a year. So, there's so many ways to do this game, and I don't think that the whole narrative of even arguing about this is productive. If you can make it in the market with your edge, you can make it.
If your edge is literally just
Yeah.
making up and saying, I'm going to buy this today, and you make money every day, keep going.
I know people that do it. I know people that don't know anything about technical analysis, and they're just like, wow, this feels good. And they make millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm. I have met some guys
feeling good about it. And I don't know how they do it. I'm not a guy that can do that, but
it makes you wonder, though. It makes me wonder this thought.
Yeah.
Because when you're good, when you're centered, when we feel good,
Mm-hmm.
we usually trade better.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when you feel good, and you already mentioned it yourself, when you feel good, you size up,
Mm-hmm.
and you're on your game.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if we place trades that we feel good about, right, there's some kind of draw to it.
Right.
There's something, obviously with experience over time, you get that feeling, right?
Yeah, you
Because
do.
you've seen so many stocks, and there's some stocks I'm sure you see that both look like good setups, but there might be a slight feeling that you have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the experience that you have that's telling you that there's something off. That will give you an indication to look into it.
And that's funny you bring that up because some of the setups that I traded this week that looked the best, and I knew there was a lot of people watching them, and I had a feeling I was like, this just looks too good. A lot of those setups just don't even pan out to begin with. I don't know why. But it's just a weird like mental thing with trading where. The setup is not always everything, and that's my constant goal is to try to find out what's more than the setup. Some people it's news, some people it's fundamental, some people it's relative strength. Like it just, it's really whatever you find other than the setup that can give you more edge than what most other people are just paying attention to.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, look, Jimmy, it was such a pleasure hearing your story.
Yeah,
I know people are gonna have tons of questions. I don't know if you really are really active on social media, but if they do have questions, how can they learn more about you?
We're starting a little page called Market Monitor.
Okay,
it's,
cool.
It's the whole relative strength thing that I was talking to. We're
The
actually,
top down?
yeah, we're putting it into some software. So you can find us on Market Monitor on Twitter.
Cool. Market
yeah.
Monitor.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put links down below.
Cool.
And again, Jimmy, thanks for being on the
Yeah,
show,
man.
brother.